Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is writer Edward Ryan and author Laurie-Ann Weis. Writer-director Edward Ryan was born and raised in Long Island, New York. He went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and he went to film school at NYU. Were you going to be a filmmaker?
I was.
Are you? You're
yes,
a writer.
That's what, yes.
Are you a filmmaker?
I'm probably more of a writer. I would characterize myself more as a writer.
You intended to make movies.
I did. Everything that I write seems to get optioned and go to other places. So I write things to make, I give them out, they get optioned, and they get taken away from me. So I write another one. That's why I did, that's why I'm writing a play.
Was filmmaking running in your family?
Yes, we had we had the Super 8 camera. We have tens and tens and tens of hours of the old footage, and I was always obsessed with that thing. I was always obsessed with watching this stuff. I was always cutting it up.
Were you?
Oh yeah.
So you started and are like building blocks.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was with Scotch tape. In the editor when we didn't have any splices. We had the little editing block thing, and I was cutting them with scissors and the Scotch tape.
But that helped you now, probably, because you said you did a lot of tech work.
Oh yeah. No, I used to also take electronics apart. I would love the junky stuff. Whenever we were throwing out a receiver or a television or something, I was always taking it apart and putting it back together.
But your family wasn't in filmmaking, or were they?
I'm the only fool.
Did you have other people to film and make movies with?
My dad really loved it.
Oh, he did?
My dad loved the camera.
Other family, were you running around with your camera? And
no, actually, they were filming me more.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. I wasn't in front of the camera as much as behind it.
Oh, so you should have been a star.
Yeah, I should have been, yeah.
Did you act at all?
I did improvisation for a long time in New York, and we went up and down the East Coast, and we did college campuses and clubs, and we did also military things and educational. We worked at we did some corporate shows.
Was it hard for you to do? You wrote the material. Writing probably was easy, but then standing up and doing that?
Well, the improvisation we didn't write. We were completely unscripted for that.
Oh.
And that at times could be very difficult, but at times it really flowed. It depended, on where your energy was and all. But I mean, we would do full-length improvised musicals.
You're kidding.
Oh no. And
Can you sing and dance?
Not right now. We could, and we would have no plan whatsoever. We would go out completely cold with no idea what style of music or when a song was going to come up. We would ask for something simple like a title or, what's the label on your sneaker or,
and
something.
Then you improv.
And then we'd do a 90-minute or 2-hour show completely improvised with singing and...
Well, who would want you if you didn't have any of this background? You got booked at those places?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You have been a producer as well.
I am.
And what have you produced?
Most recently, a horror film called Hollywood Kills. I was a co-producer on that, and that's in post-production now.
So, and you did some MTV things.
I did a concert movie for Bauhaus, a rock group called Bauhaus, and they did a reunion tour about 5 or 6 years ago. They'd been separated for about 10 years, and they came back and they did a concert. They did a tour. But they did a little test run in New York, which I produced and directed a movie of that. But the response was so good that they ended up doing a world tour.
Was that a goth group?
Yes, the Godfathers of Goth.
So you have this goth group. You have Bauhaus, which is that, and then you did this horror film.
Right.
You don't look like the dark side of things with this little smile.
People, when people read my material, they come back to me and they say, I never would have thought meeting you that I would read what you've written.
Oh, so I'm right.
Yes.
So as a writer then.
Yeah.
Yes, as a writer, what have you written?
Well, I did a write for hire, which is what originally brought me out to Los Angeles, called Shanghai Dream.
Oh, what does that mean, write for hire?
Means somebody has a story idea and they just hire you to write it.
Uh-huh.
You essentially, you don't have any rights to it. You just sign off.
So they knew you were a writer.
Right.
They called you, were you in New York at the time?
I was in New York, yeah. And that was actually a World War II drama, and it was epic length, I would say, maybe even go so far. I mean, it is long. It begins on Kristallnacht in Germany and ends in Shanghai. And it's a story of one guy's journey from, getting all the way across.
So write for hire, I love that. So what do you do then? You do all the research, or is it done?
Yeah, no, I did all the research. The story idea was the guy, I believe his exact words were German Jewish in Shanghai during World War II.
Oh.
Was the pre-existing material upon which the script was based.
But that is interesting because a lot of the Jews from Germany went to Shanghai.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that. That was in that there was a big Jewish colony in Shanghai. So it must have been easy for you to do the research because a lot of those people are here in California. People that I've talked to, because I know books that have been written about that.
There are very few.
Are there?
Yes, there were when I was working on it, which was about 5 years ago, I found research material to be rather slim, actually.
Really?
But since that time, I've noticed a lot more stuff coming out. It was right around that time that it was becoming. It was
something to talk
more well
about.
known, yeah.
Yeah, because people really didn't realize that there was a colony there like that. Did you go to China?
I did not.
Oh,
no.
so you did it all on research.
I did.
Now, the other thing that you've written is a play. Obviously, you haven't liked this writing for other people, movies, and stand-up and improv, so you're writing plays.
I have written, yes.
How's this turning out?
This is wonderful. This was a play that I believe I was meant to written. I really think that I hit my sweet spot with this play.
I love it because it's called American Idol, and I was reading the press release on it, and I went, oh, these people don't know how to spell. Why are they writing Idol, I-D-L-E? Well, I'll just go through and finish reading it, and then I noticed that you spelled Idol, I-D-O-L, because you based your theme on something like that. So tell us about it.
No,
you do know how to spell?
Oh, yes. It's spelled Idol, I-D-L-E, very intentionally. So it came about right around the 2004 election, and just a lot of what I was seeing on TV. Back then I had TV. I don't have TV now. But there were a lot of things going on, all the outsourcing, and there was always some kind of panic, it seemed, on the news. But we were in the middle of an election, and people didn't really seem to know what was going on with the election. They didn't seem to know much about the candidates, which is not entirely our own fault. I mean, there's a lot to do with the TV news. But people could tell you more about contestants on American Idol than they could about the presidential candidates.
Oh, so that sparked something in your mind?
Yeah. So it was born basically of that premise.
And what was it? So how'd you start writing? Just thinking about what was going on?
Yes, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take a lot of world trends and world events and distill it down to how this works on an interpersonal level within a family. I have a family of 4, and they all represent very distinct political groups. Actually, it's a family of 5 because there's a brother and uncle, the fraternal brother that comes in. And they all have very distinct political ideas and ideologies.
So does it take place in one room? Or does it take place over how long a period?
It takes place over a summer. And it is one set. It's not one room, but there are very few rooms. I mean, I wrote it to make it, so I didn't want to make it too fancy because I didn't want to have to raise millions of dollars.
That's right.
But this one I wasn't giving to anybody else. This one I'm doing myself.
And you're directing it as well.
Yeah.
Were you a part of the casting?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
How did you cast those people? Did you know what you had in mind? Obviously, you wrote the character.
I had one actress in mind when I wrote it, and she was in my improv group. So I had known her, Sue Peel, and she was wonderful. So, and she is a part of the cast, and the cast is spectacular. And then we just went through the casting process through Actors Access and I believe Backstage. And
So who are the characters? Just tell us.
there's George and Martha, who are the mother and father, and they have a son and a daughter, Jimmy, who's 18, and Violet, who's 16. George's brother, Willie, comes into the picture later on. George has a boss named Mr. Mister, and George has a friend named Bruno.
And are they all diverse in their ideas? So
Yes.
we have we have like 6 or 7 people?
Yes.
All,
And there's a love interest, Violet's love interest, Ibida.
so they're all against each other. I mean, they all clash.
Yes, they all. There's a extreme right wing, extreme left wing. There's a middle of the road. There's certain specific.
They're gay,
Yes.
gay. What else?
There's Christian. There's Muslim. There's black. There's white. There's left. There's right. There's straight. There's gay. There's military. There's civilian.
How do you get them all together?
Ah.
How do you direct them all?
Well, we just keep them coming and going. You know?
What's next on your agenda?
I like this play thing. I think I'm going to do another play. I have a few in mind that I'm whittling away at.
Could this play, what's it called? American
It's called
Idol?
American Idol: The Surprise and Fall.
And what was the American Idol that was on TV?
The television show, who was
Yeah.
on it, you know, I have to say I don't really know because I don't watch it.
But then how did you get that as your centerpiece?
Because it's all over the news. It's
I see.
you know, it gets as much coverage as the presidential
I
campaign,
see.
or as, you know, what others may consider more important news.
That
I mean,
was the clash that you wanted to create,
Yeah.
I see.
you can't not
Because
know
I didn't
about
know
it.
who the American Idol was either.
Neither do I. I know. I can name one or two of them. Certainly, that guy Clay Aiken.
Yeah, I mean,
was
you
all
remember
over, yeah.
because he became
Right.
well known.
Right.
But the process, I didn't go through the process to see how he became well known.
I know. I watched an early pre-screening of what, you know, when they're whittling them out really early on, and it's you know, it's kind of embarrassing. I mean, people go there. I mean, they go there just to literally make a fool of themselves. A lot of people, not all of them. I'm
Right.
not saying. I mean, some of them are certainly talented, but a lot of people will go there just to get on TV, and they'll go there and they will just willingly make a fool of themselves just to get on TV.
And I guess they're going to do the same thing to be on stage in your play.
Well, one of the characters in the play is a finalist on American Idol.
Oh, see, I knew we were getting at something.
Yeah. So his deal is that he is a woman actually on the show in American Idol. He's a transvestite. So all the world thinks that he's a sexy blonde, you know, singer dancer. And so he's about to do the finals, so he wants to get a sex change so that he can wear skimpy clothing and be sexy. And, you know, he figures that'll give him a leg up. So.
And so there we are. We get to go see that in Theater Row in Hollywood,
Yes, you do.
right? We can
And
come dressed any way we want.
It's right in the proper neighborhood for, you know, that type of thing.
Well, you have opened our eyes to a lot, Edward Ryan, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And don't go away because we'll be right back with author Laurie-Ann Weis. Hello, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm with author Laurie-Ann Weis, who was born and raised in Southern California. She earned a master's and bachelor's at Cal State Northridge. She's a board-certified educational therapist. And Laurie-Ann, what was your practice about before you wrote the book, The After Journey?
Before I wrote The After Journey, I had a private practice, and I tested children for learning problems, attention deficit, vision, language processing, and helped make a plan to reverse their difficulties in school so their self-esteem could come back and their grades could skyrocket.
Did you have an office, or were you working with the school systems?
I had a private practice out of my home.
I see, and then the recommendations come from
They
who,
come
the
from
school?
doctors, pediatricians, psychiatrists, private schools, public schools, teachers.
I see. So it's kind of like it's obviously referral because you
Yes,
you wouldn't know,
right.
they wouldn't know who to go to.
They learn by your work. If you do a good job and the child's in school and all of a sudden the grades are going up and the parent says, well, he was tested by and this is what we're doing, then the teacher will say when she gets the next student, oh, you know what, we have a student in our class and she went to Laurie-Ann Weis, you know, you might want to try her. And then you meet the principal and before you know it, you're on somebody's list.
Oh, I see, that way.
Referral list.
And then what do you do with a child? What age group did you deal with?
Kindergarten through adult.
Really?
Yes.
A wide range?
Wide range. I loved it. I mean, it was great.
What are the teenage problems?
Oh, they're huge. I think besides the grades, you know, and the self-esteem, the competition, just what's out there now, the fast lane.
And is that what you dealt with as a therapist?
A lot of it, the grades would go down and their self-esteem would sink. And
why, though? If they're in competition and they're you know, with their friends and they feel strong because they're with their friends and they don't pay attention to their work, right, in school because they're socializing, how does the self-esteem go down?
Well, it depends upon the group that they're in. Some kids work so hard and they can just get a C, or they study and they get a D and they can't understand,
right,
and they're brokenhearted and, quote, not living up to the potential. Well, that starts to happen according to the adults, and their grades sink and their self-esteem just goes down the toilet. So my job was to find out why Johnny was working so hard and not getting the grades, because Johnny's really a good kid.
Oh, I see. And so then that's hours of therapy?
No, we diagnose what it is. We come up with some kind of a plan and we give the parents options. We take all the evidence and we put it together and say it could be this, this, or this, and here's the options, and then the child will buy into what he's willing or not willing to do.
I see.
And you get a real team approach. It's
nice.
fabulous. And then I tutor a little bit with some of the kids I test. Others I don't. I just test them. And off we go. I mean, they go back to school with a plan. They learn time management, organization. Some get help for vision. Some do need regular counseling. I don't do that part.
Find out those things.
That's my job.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Now, I look at myself as like a boat, and I'm going across the ocean, and I send scuba divers down to find out what it is. You know, like where are the dolphins and where specifically are what type of fish. I get very, very specific, and then I can look at it and make a plan.
That's fabulous. You've done a lot of writing on that, but you didn't write a book about that.
No.
And but you did really totally shift from this child therapy or young adult therapy into yourself. And after journey, something about grief, and you wrote a book about it. And it's something you didn't know very much about, and you knew so much about child therapy and testing, and you didn't write a book about that. So why did this come about?
Well, that was the joke on me. With all my degrees and all of my education, when I became widowed, I thought I was going to be able to handle this because I had preparation. My husband was diagnosed, and we had 18 months of trying to beat this disease, and surprise, he died. And I knew all the stages, I knew all the things I read in school, and none of it worked. None of it worked.
So what happened?
Well, I was devastated beyond words, and really shut down. More
Did
than
you continue to work?
No, I quit.
Oh, you quit work.
I quit work for at least 9 months. And then out of learning how to reinvent myself and my life, I realized there were no tools out there for someone like me, not really. I didn't know how to shop for one. I didn't know what side of the bed to sleep on.
You were like just confronted with all these things? So
yeah, brand new life. I didn't have friends that were widowed. Nobody was widowed. I mean, I was young and I was supposed to grow up and have that normal life, you know, with the picket fence and the dog and the thing. Death happened in the movies. Surprised it happened to me.
I see.
You know, and so who do you talk to? I wasn't one who could go to a bereavement group. Everybody
why
was
weren't
too old.
you? Oh, is that the problem?
Well, they were older or they lost a child, and everybody was different, and I was so closed down. I think I died the day he died.
I wondered about bereavement groups, because that's one of the steps you take.
It works for some people, not for me.
So is there a correct way to mourn then?
Yeah.
There is a correct way.
Your
and that's
way.
what you're at. Oh.
Your way. Whatever your way is. Some people do bereavement groups. I wasn't one of them. I needed my book.
But one of the things that you talk about is that there are two different types of grief.
Yes. And if I had known that, my whole journey would have been different. The first kind of grief is what I went through called physical grief. I didn't know about physical grief, and if I had known, I would have had a better journey. That's when your whole body just is in so much pain.
So that's the first thing that happened to you, though, if you shut down.
You shut down.
But you talked about in the book having this physical pain where it actually hurts.
Oh, yes. I thought my heart was being carved out and my stomach was being stabbed. I was tired. I didn't want to get up. There were times I was actually suicidal. I mean, I was so physically gone. And on top of that, you have emotional grief.
That's the other one?
That's the other one. And that's hopelessness and sadness. It's just emotion. It's not the physical. It's what you're thinking in your head. And when you have them both at the same time, I believe you shut down because you're not clear.
I see.
But what I didn't know, which is what I spend a lot of time in the book about, is the one thing I wish I knew is that physical grief does leave.
It leaves you?
It leaves
about,
on
I
its
see.
own. It's
I
like
see.
you can't push a river. It goes when it goes. And if you know what it is, you can have compassion for yourself and say, I'm going to be okay. It's going to go away.
But doesn't emotional grief go away too with time? That kind of like softens?
I think we have tools for emotional grief. I think we have skills that we learned from parents and mentors and teachers along the way. We do self-talk, just like you said. But I don't believe we can do emotional talking well at the same time when we are so physically gone. Nothing makes sense when they're simultaneous.
Well, you didn't go to a big bereavement group. It's very difficult to say.
Big word. Yeah.
Bereavement group. You didn't go to that. How did you then talk to people about this? Because there's a lot in this book about what other people say and how other people feel.
I went on the internet and just talked to people.
And they all had they were there to talk to you too?
They were there to talk to me. I found strangers all over the world.
Is it easier to talk to a stranger,
Yes.
do you think, than to be in a group with people?
Well, where I lived, there wasn't a group just for widows in my situation
I
at
see.
my age.
I see.
And I had no friends.
I see.
It wasn't there for me, but it was there for me on the internet. And one of the nice things about the internet was that you can cry in front of a screen at 2 in the morning, and there's nobody there, to bother or anything. You're just you and your computer.
So you were just gathering, talking, seeing people going through the same thing that you were going through.
Yeah, and I found out I was normal.
That's the other part in your book. When I was reading it last night, it's very, very quick, and I think these titles are interesting. Ashes. That's the first thing I opened. What is that?
Well, if you cremate him, or your wife, or the beloved of whoever, what do you do with the ashes?
I knew I read this.
I mean,
So what
that
do you do?
is a very big thing. Well, everybody in this chapter did something different. And that is the point of the book. When you're all alone and you want to know if you're normal, you can read it and go, oh, her ashes are still in the closet. Oh, her ashes are on the nightstand. Oh, she gathered the ashes and put them in the mountains. And he took the ashes and he put them in the ocean.
And this is what all these people have
Yes.
told you, different things.
All
Here's
different
another one.
things.
No more hugs.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
That's a real physical
It's
thing.
a real physical thing.
And you just talked about cooking for one and eating alone.
Devastating. You're used to eating with someone, you're used to buying for two, and all of a sudden your shopping basket is one potato, one banana, or a tiny carton of milk.
It's not funny, but it's reality, isn't it?
Yes, it's something we don't talk about. It's devastating because you lose your life and you lose yourself when you're that connected. And I'm not saying everybody feels that.
No, I see. But you've dealt with a lot of different feelings in here.
Yeah.
So you can go, even if you're not feeling what you're feeling, you can talk about at the time during the holiday seasons.
Oh, absolutely.
And everyone says that's the worst time.
It's really tough. And I think a lot of this book could apply to someone who's divorced. I mean,
I was thinking about that too, because it's a separation.
Exactly. And it is the death of a dream. And I think sometimes now when I mourn, it's the innocence that I mourn for. Whether it's the death of a dream in a divorce, the death of a dream as a widow, a death of a dream is a death of a dream.
Because at the end you say you're changed completely.
Forever.
But you can still have a new life.
Yes, you have to choose to work, to reinvent to the next thing, and find a new joy and find a new normal.
And sometimes it takes time.
It takes a lot of time. But I don't believe time heals. I believe the work you do is what helps you to move through to the next place, to have a different joy, a different normal. So you're not stuck.
Otherwise you could. Like the other thing, coming home to an empty house, invitations for one. I'm just going through here because that was the social life, returning alone.
Yeah, they're all reality.
The money, it's all reality.
All reality.
Growing into singlehood, then that's where you start learning and teaching yourself.
Oh, I was like a grown-up teenager all over again. I hadn't practiced singlehood in a long time.
And then what your happy ending came, because you had a happy ending.
I am very blessed. I had a mother who, I get choked up, just believed that if I worked hard to find new hobbies, to meet new people, to keep my passion, to not be angry, I would find joy differently.
And you did.
And I did, and I find it in everything. I always love my work. I love my work. I love my relationships. I love the sunset. I think what this did for me is basically I don't have the little things to worry about anymore. They don't matter.
I'm so glad you were here because it's such a hard subject, and you really made us have a dialogue. Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
And thank you for watching. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017.